Hear the word of the Lord from Lamentations chapter 3. I am the man who has seen affliction under the rod of God's wrath. He has driven and brought me into darkness without any light. Surely against me he turns his hand again and again the whole day long. He has made my flesh and my skin waste away. He has broken my bones. He has besieged and enveloped me with bitterness and tribulation. He has made me dwell in darkness like the dead of long ago. He has walled me about so that I cannot escape. He has made my chains heavy. Though I call and cry for help, he shuts out my prayer. He has blocked my ways with blocks of stones. He has made my paths crooked. He is a bear lying in wait for me, a lion in hiding. He turned aside my steps and tore me to pieces. He's made me desolate. He bent his bow and set me as a target for his arrow. He drove into my kidneys the arrows of his quiver. I have become the laughingstock of all peoples, the object of their taunts all day long. He has filled me with bitterness. He has sated me with wormwood. He has made my teeth grind on gravel and made me cower in ashes. My soul is bereft of peace. I have forgotten what happiness is. So I say, my endurance has perished, so has my hope from the Lord. Remember my affliction and my wanderings, the wormwood and the gall. My soul continually remembers it and is bowed down within me. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. It is good for man that he bear the yoke in his youth. Let him sit alone in silence when it is laid on him. Let him put his mouth in the dust. There may yet be hope. Let him give his cheek to the one who strikes, and let him be filled with insults. For the Lord will not cast off forever. But though he cause grief, he will have compassion according to the abundance of his steadfast love. For he does not afflict from his heart or grieve the children of men. We don't have a lot of songs in the hymnal based on Lamentations, do we? And the ones we do have are generally focused on those verses right in the middle of the chapter, verses 21 to 24. Songs like Great is Thy Faithfulness have been helping the church for hundreds of years to find hope and peace in difficult times. But see, when we focus only on those verses, I think we miss the point, not just of those verses, but of the whole book. Because these laments were written by people and for people who had, by the grace of God, survived this unimaginable trauma. They have witnessed a foreign army come onto their soil, smash down their walls, burn down their temple, destroy their homes, and execute the royal family. Everything personal, political, social, and theological has been decimated. Think about that. What if everything in your life, everything you and I rely on for security and comfort and identity and a sense of God's presence and hope for the future, what if it all just vanished? Surely it would feel as if the world had lost all sense of order and unity. It would feel hopeless. And surely that is how Israel felt in 587 BC. Hence the book of Lamentations. In our culture, pain and suffering are often seen as embarrassments, a sign of weakness, even sleazy. If something's wrong, man, fix it and move on. When we're hurting, we hesitate to ask anybody to come and sit and listen to our problems in detail. Somehow that's seen as selfish or even cringe-worthy. No, if you're suffering, you should just grin and bear it, especially if you're a Christian. Count it all joy, brother. Suck it up. Bear your cross. But don't ask me to help you carry it. But Lamentations Lamentations asks us to sit with the grief, no matter if it's ours or someone else's. To take the time to feel the texture, to feel the weight and the shape of what seems to be oh so palpable. In your reading for yesterday, Lamentations 1, Jerusalem is called Daughter Zion. And there the writer repeatedly asked God and anyone passing by to see her pain, implying that neither are paying any attention, or maybe they just don't care. The mockers do see her, and they heap words of shame upon her, just adding to the suffering. And over in that first chapter, we hear that she has no one to comfort her. Neither Lord nor neighbor offers any consolation or support. It's as if the writer is begging us, the readers of the book, to pay attention to her suffering, that we should be the ones to notice. In Lamentations chapter 2, the writer tries to imagine anyone strong enough to even help her bear the pain. There is this difficulty throughout the book of adequately describing deep suffering in terms that we can really understand. Pain is hard to enunciate. But the writer pleads with us to understand the enormity of the suffering. And then in today's text, chapter 3, we're introduced in the first verse to what it calls a man. The Hebrew word there is really warrior, a strong man, someone who has witnessed the rod of God's anger, and he too is suffering. He has no peace, no happiness, no strength, no hope, he says in the text. He knows that everything that has come from the Lord. And he likens God to a bear who mercilessly mauls its prey. He subtly accuses God of failing to hear and save this floundering people. And then later on in verse 42, he says, "We have done wrong, and you have not forgiven us." But then amid all the pain and the accusations, we find that very famous line, "But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases." Those words are the very cornerstone of the writer's faith. Unwavering hope in the ever-renewing loyalty and grace and mercy of the Lord. Over and over in Scripture, we're reminded that the Lord is a God gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. And those words seem to be the backbone of Israelite faith all through the Old Testament. In the past, this knowledge of God gave the people a quiet confidence that no matter what they got into, no matter what kind of trouble, God's eventually going to come to the rescue. The writer even claims that pain and suffering can be constructive, especially for the young, as it builds into them some kind of spiritual grit. It was believed that eventually God would bring salvation and that those who put their hope in Him would be rewarded, their faith would be increased. The writer knows that God has done none of this out of anger or rage, that all of it has been done to benefit Israel, according to verses 32 and 33. See, I think it's really important for us to see that the hope found in verses 21 to 24 doesn't get the last word in this book. Some scholars have been quick to point out that this hope somehow minimizes the descriptions of the suffering that go through the rest of the book. I'm not sure that's the case. Chapters 4 and 5 quickly come back to the suffering, describing the pain in excruciating detail. And this might suggest that the words of hope in chapter 3 didn't solve the problem, nor did they lessen the pain. And in fact, Lamentations ends with a series of questions that are somewhat startling. Why have you forgotten us completely? Why have you forsaken us these many days? And then the last two verses of the book. Restore us to yourself, O Lord, that we may be restored. Renew our days as of old, unless you've utterly rejected us and you remain exceedingly angry with us. As I think about those in our congregation who really are hurting, I'm talking about the people who are currently grieving over the loss of loved ones, those who are suffering from physical maladies or emotional pain or relational pain, those who are facing an uncertain end to their illnesses, endless surgeries and follow-up procedures. I wonder if the words of this book describe how they feel right now. Words like forgotten and forsaken, rejected and hopeless, asking, Lord, when will this end? Will it ever end? Lord, are you listening? And so we preach both. Yeah, we preach the hope found in the goodness and faithfulness of God. But we also preach about the traumatic hopelessness and doubt when we suffer, when we wonder if God is really there, if He's listening to our cries for help. Let's not use verses 21 to 24 to shut people down in their suffering. Instead, let's use those verses as a conversation starter as we come together to openly share our deepest pains and fears and doubts. And then may we get on our knees and plead with the Lord together to be the God He so long ago promised He would be.